Character deaths in anime can be a hard blow for fans to overcome. Whether tragic or bittersweet, the most memorable deaths are often those that create overwhelming rage or negative emotions. Obviously, such character deaths become memorable for the sole reason that audiences are left with a bitter taste in their mouths. The reason for audiences raging over a fictional character's death is simply because of a clear lack of closure or a complete arc. Major character deaths in anime aren't always justifiable, given how often the plot will kill off characters for simple shock value. It's one thing for a major character to meet their end with a smile after a satisfying arc, but when the plot demands its pound of flesh for no other reason than shock value, it's no wonder fans rage. Number 9. Askeladd died before Thorfinn could have revenge. In Vinland Saga, after killing Thors in an ambush, Askeladd took Thorfinn under his wing and promised revenge if the young Viking could defeat him in single combat. Using Thorfinn's honor against him, Askeladd strung him along for much of the plot for his own ends. After years of manipulating Thorfinn, Askeladd sacrificed himself to ensure Wales' future by assassinating King Sweyn. Askeladd may have saved Wales from Viking invasion and given Canute the throne, but he robbed Thorfinn of his revenge. He may have ultimately attempted to have Thorfinn finish him as he bled out, but by that point, Thorfinn would have only been satisfied with an honorable duel. The entire thematic point of Vinland Saga may have been to illustrate how revenge is never the answer with Askeladd's untimely death, but that doesn't mean fans didn't feel robbed from a final duel. Number 8. Yu-Gi-Oh fell in battle against the Administrator. In Sword Art Online, Alicization, during the finale battle, Kirito, Yu-Gi-Oh, and Alice challenged Quinella, and while they ultimately won the fight, it came at great cost to Yu-Gi-Oh. With the Cardinal's help, Yu-Gi-Oh transformed into a giant sword and defeated the sword golem before targeting Quinella, despite Kirito's warnings. The result was obvious. He lands a decisive blow on Quinella only to take lethal damage himself. Yu-Gi-Oh's death was little more than a way to raise the stakes of the fight. Sure, he sacrificed himself to give Kirito a chance to take down Quinella, but his death seemed entirely preventable, given that he chose to attack Quinella instead of trusting Kirito to handle things himself. The most important issue with Yu-Gi-Oh's death is that he didn't even technically die in the traditional sense. Instead, he lived on as a somewhat sentient sword for the rest of the series. Number 7. Tatsumi only died in the anime. In Akame ga Kill, fans raged against Tatsumi's death in the anime. Tatsumi didn't die in the manga, so fans who knew the story weren't just shocked, they were enraged. After a long and brutal struggle against the tyrannical empire, Tatsumi stood alongside Akame as the last two surviving members of Night Raid. He survived the entire rebellion only to die at the very end of the battle after defeating the emperor, despite everything he went through as the protagonist. He still died for seemingly no other reason than shock value and to continue the trend of every Night Raid member meeting a tragic end. While the anime killed him off to shorten the narrative and create a more streamlined story, that still doesn't excuse the complete lack of disregard the anime gave his character as opposed to the manga counterpart. Number 6. Kaori Miyazono died from an incurable disease. In Your Lie in April, Kaori Miyazono acted as a guiding light to Kusai Arima for much of the series until her final moments. Despite the climax of the story resting on Kusai's performance with a hopeful undertone of Kaori beating her illness, she still died during surgery. Her death may have been obvious from a mile away, but the way in which it happened dashed any chance of a happy ending for both characters. The entire point of Your Lie in April may have been about Kusai growing out of his shell and finding his love for music again, but the way he did left almost no room for any closure between him and Kaori. After a climactic piano performance, his win was dashed in light of Kaori's death. And to add insult to injury, instead of ending up together with Kaori, after her death the narrative paired him up with Tsubaki Sawabe. A bittersweet ending for fans who hoped for a happy ending. Number 5. Kyojuro Rengoku sacrificed himself to protect Tanjiro. In Demon Slayer, after a long and hard-fought battle aboard the Mugen train, Kyojuro Rengoku left the narrative as quickly as he entered it. After successfully defeating Enmu and saving countless lives aboard the train, Tanjiro and his group seemingly saved the day. However, after Akaza appeared suddenly, Rengoku jumped into the fray to keep the wounded demon slayers safe, ultimately sacrificing himself in the battle to protect the next generation. Despite being a Hashira, Rengoku was ultimately no match for Akaza's strength and lost soon after. Fans may not have had much time with Rengoku as a character, but he made a lasting impression as one of the best written characters in all of Demon Slayer. His death not only marked a turning point in Tanjiro's journey, but was also met with mixed emotions from fans that wanted to see more of him and raged at his death because a happy ending to the arc was just on the horizon. Number 4, Euphemia Lee Britannia died because of Lelouch's mistake. In Code Geass, Euphie Lee Britannia drove Lelouch into a corner with the announcement of the Special Administrative Zone of Japan. In doing so, Lelouch's rebellion would lose most of its steam if successful. However, during a meeting where Lelouch revealed his true identity to his half-sister in an effort to gain her trust, he inadvertently used his Geass against her. The reason behind why many fans of Code Geass had such a problem with Euphie's death isn't that it occurred but the way in which it did. Sure, Lelouch lost control of his Geass, but that doesn't excuse his poor joke that resulted in the massacre that followed. Her death ultimately allowed Lelouch to exploit the situation for the rebellion's benefit, but it came at the cost of believability over Lelouch's actions at Kama. Number 3, Sasha Blouse was killed by Gabi to make a point. In Attack on Titan, after Eren's successful attack against Marley, the Scout Corps came to his aid and rescued him using a fleet of blimps. With escape on the horizon, it seemed everyone was about to get away without any major loss of life from their side. However, after Gabi Braun snuck aboard their escape blimp, she fired blindly into the crowd, shooting Sasha in an act of revenge against their attack. Sasha's death acts as a turning point in the series where the last ounce of comedic relief was destroyed in favor of a brutal tale of survival. Fans were not only blindsided by her death, but up in arms and rage over Gabi's character thereafter. Even though Gabi was written to be the exact same character as Eren Yeager, just on the side of Marley, that didn't stop fans from hating her. Number 2, Neji Hyuga died protecting Naruto without using palm rotation. In Naruto Shippuden, during the Fourth Great Shinobi War, Neji Hyuga met a completely preventable death after sacrificing himself to save Naruto. Neji was one of the strongest characters when it came to defending against projectiles thanks to his Byakugan and Taijutsu Abelites. That didn't mean much, however, when the plot forgot that Neji could use palm rotation to negate the Ten Tails attack. Instead, he simply jumped in the way of a lethal attack to protect Naruto using his body. It's one thing when a character dies in a believable manner. It might be bittersweet for fans of the character, but at least there's some thought put into their death. For Neji, that wasn't the case. Neji's death was entirely preventable and even broke Naruto's own logic for the sake of shock value and upping the stakes. There were no major deaths during the war before Neji's final moments, and that made his death feel more like a box to be checked than a legitimate farewell to his character. Number 1, Port Ghastie Ace wasted the sacrifices of the Whitebeard pirates. In One Piece, after a long and violent war between the Navy and the Whitebeard pirates to save Ace from execution, Monkey D. Luffy ultimately freed his brother and almost escaped successfully. However, despite all the sacrifices that the Whitebeard pirates and their allies endured, Ace ultimately humored Admiral Akainu's taunts and paid the price. Escape was within their reach, but Ace chose to turn back and face Admiral Akainu over petty insults towards Whitebeard. Sure, this may have been in character with Ace, but that didn't justify his complete lack of survival and brotherly instincts towards Luffy's safety. For much of the battle, Ace wanted to die to stop the war, but ultimately chose to live thanks to Luffy's continued efforts. What truly rubbed salt in the wound was Ace's face heel turn towards Akainu's challenge after having just accepted his.